When it comes to surviving winter's fury, few inventions from the early 20th century are as underrated as waxed wool. You see, long before the advent of synthetic insulation, Gore-Tex, or those cozy down parkas, soldiers, explorers and frontiersmen relied on a simple blend of animal fibre and wax to outlast some of the coldest, harshest conditions ever recorded. From the trenches of World War I to the Arctic expeditions of the 1930s, wax-coated wool was more than just clothing. It was life insurance. And the science and craftsmanship behind it reveal a forgotten mastery of natural materials that modern technology still struggles to replicate. The story begins with wool, the soldier's original armour against the cold. Wool has always been a cornerstone of survival gear because of its remarkable natural properties. Unlike cotton, which tends to soak and chill, wool retains warmth even when wet. Its crimped fibres trap tiny pockets of air that act as insulation, while lanolin, the natural wax found in raw wool, adds a degree of water resistance. But as soldiers discovered during World War I, unprocessed wool quickly lost its lanolin through washing, mud and rain. Once stripped of its oils, it became heavy, slow to dry, and prone to freezing solid in the field. The solution, it came not from industry, but from necessity. Soldiers and supply officers began experimenting with ways to restore wool's protective qualities using waxes, animal fats and oils that could withstand snow and sleet. This innovation gave birth to the wax-coated wool garments that later became standard issue in certain regiments, and a favourite among mountaineers, aviators and polar explorers. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. What made wax-coated wool revolutionary wasn't the concept, it was the chemistry. By blending natural beeswax, linseed oil, or later paraffin into the outer fibres of the fabric, craftsmen created a barrier that repelled moisture while maintaining breathability. The process was, slow and deliberate. Each garment had to be warmed so the wax could penetrate the fibres evenly, then left to cure, creating a semi-rigid, weatherproof shell that remained flexible even in freezing temperatures. Unlike rubberized coats, which, cracked in the cold and trapped sweat, waxed wool regulated body temperature efficiently. Soldiers in Norway, Finland, and later on the Eastern Front relied on this material during campaigns where, honestly, the cold was deadlier than bullets. During the Winter War of 1939–40, Finnish troops, famed for their resilience, used wool garments treated with animal wax mixtures that kept them dry and mobile in sub-zero blizzards that, crippled mechanized armies. By contrast, standard-issue cotton and canvas gear would freeze stiff overnight. Waxed wool retained its shape, its warmth, and crucially, its silence, an advantage for scouts and snipers who frankly couldn't afford the crackling sound of frozen fabric. The true brilliance of wax-coated wool lay in its accessibility. Soldiers and civilians alike could make it with materials at hand. The classic formula used roughly 3 parts beeswax to 1 part boiled linseed oil. The mixture was melted down until liquid and applied to the wool fabric using a brush or cloth while still warm. Once coated, the garment was hung near a fire or in direct sunlight to allow the wax to absorb and cure. The ratio could vary depending on climate. For colder, drier environments, a higher wax ratio gave better wind resistance. In wetter, Warmer regions, a lighter coat with more oil, allowed greater flexibility and breathability. Field manuals from the 1940s even advised re-waxing garments seasonally, much like maintaining a rifle. You can still apply this principle today. To make your own waxed wool jacket or blanket for outdoor use, heat a mixture of beeswax and boiled linseed oil in a double boiler. Apply it evenly to the wool and hang it in a warm area for 24 hours. Once cured, it forms a natural barrier that repels rain and snow while allowing moisture from the body to escape, a balance few modern synthetics manage as efficiently. Waxed wool gear earned its place in survival history for a reason. Throughout history, the people who trusted waxed wool weren't weekend campers. They were men living and fighting in the most unforgiving conditions on Earth. British naval officers in the North Atlantic, Soviet partisans in the forests of Belarus, and Alaskan trappers during the 1940s all swore by its reliability. Even in post-war years, waxed wool made its mark. Explorers on Antarctic missions used waxed wool outer layers over knitted undergarments, creating a system that could shed snow, resist wind, and stay warm even when soaked by ice melt. Its ability to perform without depending on synthetic chemicals or complex manufacturing made it the material of choice for decades, particularly in regions where supplies were scarce and conditions unpredictable. The best part is that the method was entirely sustainable. Beeswax, animal fat and linseed oil were renewable, biodegradable and easy to reapply. These garments didn't just last through one season, they could endure years of use with proper care. In fact, some original waxed wool field jackets from the 1940s still exist today, the fibres stiff but intact, testifying to the durability of this forgotten craft. The underlying lesson of waxed wool goes beyond the material itself. It's about understanding the value of adaptability, how simple natural resources can outperform complex technology when applied intelligently. For modern survivalists, bushcrafters, or anyone preparing for long-term outdoor resilience, the concept remains gold. Layer natural insulation with water-resistant protection that doesn't suffocate. You can combine the same principle with today's materials by treating wool blankets, socks, or gloves with beeswax and oil to extend their weather resistance. Hunters still use waxed wool gaiters and caps for their quiet, durable performance in rain and snow. The balance of insulation, breathability, and water resistance hasn't been surpassed. It's simply been forgotten. And unlike synthetics, waxed wool won't fail when it tears or wears thin. It can be re-waxed indefinitely. That's what made it invaluable in wartime. Durability that could be maintained in the field without factories or machines. When we talk about historical innovations in gear, waxed wool rarely gets the credit it deserves. Yet it bridged the gap between ancient textiles and modern technical fabrics with a simplicity that still holds value today. It was the unsung hero of the cold campaigns, the silent shield against sleet and frost, and the forerunner of the waterproof materials we use now. If you care about practical history, the kind that saved lives and shaped survival practices, wax-coated wool is a chapter worth revisiting. Its effectiveness wasn't theoretical. It was proven by soldiers who marched through Siberian winters, by explorers who crossed the Arctic ice, and by frontiersmen who relied on their clothing as their only line of defense. So, the next time you see a gleaming parka or an insulated synthetic shell, Remember the humble waxed wool that came before it, crafted by hand, tested in war, and tough enough to outlast blizzards. If you found this story of forgotten ingenuity valuable, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Valor and share it with fellow history buffs and survival enthusiasts. There's more buried wisdom like this waiting to be unearthed. Lessons from the past that still hold the power to keep us alive today.